Go ahead.
And point me up. Up we go.
Good morning. As we begin our service today, we acknowledge that we are gathering on the homeland of the Western Abenaki people. We express gratitude for their traditional and ongoing stewardship of the lands and waters, and we offer respect to the elders, both past and present. My name is Tom Shurston, and my pronouns are he and him. As today's worship associate, I extend to you a warm welcome. Thank you for joining us in this time of worship from wherever you are. Whether you are here in the sanctuary, on Zoom or Facebook, or whenever you are watching on your own time, we deeply appreciate your presence and fellowship. Since 1846, the Unitarian Church of Montpelier has been a sanctuary for those seeking spiritual sustenance and peace and justice in the world. Whether you are a newcomer, a longtime member, or somewhere in between, you are part of our community, and we are glad you are here. Any and all newcomers to our congregation and worship service are invited to fill out our welcome form shared in the Zoom chat and also at the welcome table so that we can connect with you outside of the service. If you are joining us on Zoom, the chat function will be on for much of the service. It is a great way to publicly welcome and support one another, to affirm the hard work and effort of our worship team, and to share good vibes and positive thoughts with each other. For technical issues or constructive thoughts, please send a private message to one of our Zoom hosts, indicated with an asterisk by their names, or join us for coffee hour after this service to share them there. Thank you to our virtual greeters who are offering hospitality and tech help throughout the service. Additionally, on Zoom, click on the live transcript button wherever it lives on your screen for increased accessibility. I invite you now to take a moment to turn your video on and go into gallery view on your Zoom screen, or turn towards your neighbors from your seats in the sanctuary. Let us greet our neighbors with a wave hello and a warm smile. It's so nice to see all of you here in the sanctuary and on the gallery view. Again, a warm welcome to each and every one of you. I have a few brief announcements about the life of our congregation. You are invited to stay on Zoom after the service for our virtual coffee hour. Our stewardship committee will be available to talk with you about this year's pledge drive, and our membership and hospitality committee will be greeting newcomers. Also, the church sanctuary is now open for in-person attendance every Sunday. Read more in the e-news and on the website about our current COVID safety guidelines and how to register in advance. Finally, please read the weekly e-newsletter to learn more about the many upcoming events in our church community. And now, let us enter more deeply into our time of worship with our prelude.
Good morning. I am the Reverend Joan Javier Duval, minister of the Unitarian Church of Montpelier. I use she, her pronouns. You are invited to join in the call to worship this morning with the response, "It is good to be together." When the sun is shining and when rain is falling, when our hearts feel blessed and when our hearts are broken, when we feel the power of our connection and when we feel that we are all alone. Because we are a loving community, because there is much for which to give thanks, because we need one another. Now please rise in body or spirit and join in singing at home or in the sanctuary our opening hymn, number 347 in the gray hymnal, "Gather the Spirit." Thank you all for that wonderful singing. This morning, as we officially launch our 2022 annual pledge drive, Emerging with Hope, I would like to introduce you to our Stewardship Committee. Committee members, please come forward onto the chancel. These 6 church members have committed their time, creativity, and energy to supporting all of us in our shared ministry of stewardship. Through this shared ministry, we as a congregation engage in a spiritual practice of gratitude, generosity, and reciprocity. We foster care for our community within and beyond our church walls through sharing our resources, including our financial resources. This year's Stewardship Committee members are Brenda Bean, Scott Hess, Ansel Plug, John Poten, Charlotte Root, and Sue Stuckey. I also want to acknowledge UCM member Brian Prendergast, who has designed our materials this year, and our ministerial intern, Vertus LeVar Robinson, who is offering great support to the committee. You will be hearing from the committee throughout our pledge drive, and committee members will be available after today's service during the Zoom coffee hour for conversation. Thank you, Stewardship Committee, for your service. And now Sue Stuckey and Scott Hess will lead us in the chalice lighting.
Let us now light the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. As I share these words by UU Minister of Music Mary Allen Walden, I invite you to light a chalice at home if you have one handy. This church is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm it and enable its participation in the wider world around us.
During our Story for All Ages, I invite anyone in our sanctuary who might want to come a little bit closer to see and listen to the Story for All Ages to feel free to sit on the floor up near the chancel if you'd like to. Our Story for All Ages today is inspired by the ancient epic poem, The Conference of the Birds, by the Persian Sufi Muslim writer Farid ad-Din Attar. Once upon a time, all the birds in the land decided they needed a leader for their community. A leader, they thought, would make their community stronger. So representatives of all the bird species gathered to discuss finding a leader.
A leader will tell us the right thing to do, said the robin.
Our leader must be wise, said the owl.
A leader must believe we are each important, big and small, said the sparrow.
I want the leader to be caring, like a friend, said the dove.
Yes, the leader must make us feel safe, said the hawk.
And the leader must help us share and get along better, said the jay.
I know where you can find such a leader, said the robin. It is the simorg, and it lives far from here.
The birds were very excited. They said they were willing to go anywhere to find such a leader.
It might be dangerous, said the sparrow.
A few birds looked troubled, but all the birds voted to go find the simorg. The robin took off, and all the birds followed. They flew at night. They flew in the sunshine. Days and days passed. Some birds got tired and left the group. Other birds were filled with doubt. How did they know the simorg really existed? Only the robin had ever heard of this bird. Some of the doubters dropped out, but others kept flying. One valley was filled with fiery mountains. All the birds were afraid.
I'm too small to make it over the mountain, lamented the sparrow. No, keep flying. We can make it together. We will all help you, said the others.
And they did. The strong flyers helped the weaker flyers. The birds with good vision helped find food for the group. Along the journey, the birds learned how to better respect, share, and care for each other. It seemed that every bird had something special and unique to offer that made the journey easier.
Finally, the robin announced, "We are here."
The other birds looked around in anticipation. "Where is the simorg? We don't see it," they cried.
"Come, it's over here," cried the robin.
The birds stood beside the robin and realized they were on the edge of a lake. They looked in and saw their own reflections. Then they understood. The simorg was not another bird. The simorg was all of them, and all of them were the simorg.
They remembered that each of them had something good and strong and special inside them, and that each bird had gifts to bring to the community. They were all that was needed to keep the community strong.
They knew now that together they could do anything. I believe that our church community is a lot like this community of birds. We each have important and special gifts to share, and when we share our gifts and care for one another on our journey, our community is strong. As we begin our annual pledge drive, let us reflect on the gifts that we have to share and what we can do to support this community that we care so much about.
Our giving is a spiritual act, and our generosity is a form of love and gratitude that helps us to practice Unitarian Universalism in support of our shared values with our collective resources. Charity is central to the well-being of this congregation as well as the world beyond, and it is primary to our own sense of self. Each month through the UCM Community Pouch program, we share part of our collection with an important church fund or a community organization aligned with our values. During the month of March, our Community Pouch recipient has been Downstreet Housing's Berry Recovery Residence for Moms and Kids. This group is renovating a 100-year-old house in order to open a safe home for moms in recovery and their kids. And this is only the second such facility in the state. Your contribution to the UCM Community Pouch this month will directly support this work. You can make a financial contribution today by placing your offering in the collection basket if you are here in the sanctuary, or by donating online. Go to ucmvt.org and click on Donate to UCM. There are options to contribute to the general fund, which supports the general operating budget of the church, the community pouch, or both. You can also mail a check to the church, or you can use our text to give option. Simply send a text message with the word give to 802-266-4848 and follow the instructions sent to you. Again, that number is 802-266-4848. We are so grateful for each and every one of you for your generosity in its many forms. For our musical offering today, we invited some of our young people to sing with us, the choir. We first recorded this over 2 weeks ago, but sometimes the technology gremlins have different plans for us, and that recording wasn't usable. So we recorded again just last Thursday. Silas, Ansel, Elena, and Maddie joined us to lend their wonderful voices, but unfortunately others from the original crew of kids weren't able to make it then. But we still wanted to acknowledge their participation in spirit, so you will see video clips from the original recording interspersed. While the offering is being given and gratefully received, please enjoy Give Us Hope.
Listen to the sound of my voice. Can you feel the beat of my heart? Listen to the questions I have. Listen to me. It's all very simple to see what we need. Give us hope. My voice is calling. Can you see? Look in my eyes. Can you feel? My hand is reaching. Give us hope, and we'll show you the way. Listen to the sound of my voice calling. Can you feel the beat of my heart pounding? Listen to the questions I have. Listen to me. We are the future. Help us believe. Give us hope. My voice is calling. Can you see? Look in my eyes. Can you feel? My hand is reaching. Give us hope, and we'll show you the way. Look in my eyes. Can you feel? My hand is reaching. Give us hope, and we'll show you the way.
Wow, thank you to everyone who made that choral offering possible, working through the technical challenge to bring us that beautiful piece of inspiring music. And I invite you now into a time of meditation and prayer, letting the music reverberate through you as you become even more attuned to your heart and your spirit in this moment. We begin by acknowledging the joys and the sorrows that we bring with us into this time of worship this morning. In the spirit of community, we set aside time in each service to share our personal joys and sorrows with one another. You may be celebrating something special in your life or feeling grateful for a particular person or experience. You may be facing a challenge or a loss that is heavy on your heart. We acknowledge all that is present for each of us. We also acknowledge the collective pain that we feel in the face of war, in the face of social and environmental crises that cause suffering for so many people on our planet. May we hold all that is present with compassion. Today, you are welcome to share your joys and sorrows in the Zoom chat or Facebook comments if you're joining us online, so that others might read what you have to share and offer care and support. Ruth Whitty is our lay pastoral caregiver this morning. She's available to lend a listening ear of care after the service. Ruth's phone number will be shared in the Zoom chat, and it's also available in the church directory. As these joys and sorrows are shared or held in the silence of your hearts, may you know that you are held in the love of this community and the expansive love that moves beyond us. This springtime, as early as it may be in the spring season, can be a time of preparing for something new to emerge. And in that spirit, I share with you these words for reflection by John O'Donohue. For a new beginning. In out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight, when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure, hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. Let us share now in a time of quiet meditation. The birds in our story for all ages come together from all over the globe, uniting in their search for a leader. In the epic Sufi poem that our story is based on, the birds travel for years, encountering 7 different valleys, each with its own set of trials to endure and wisdom to gain, before the birds can move on in their search for the mythical Simorg bird. The poem and the story that Liza and I shared earlier serve as allegories for the journeys we are each on and the collective journey of our community. There are challenges and moments of doubt. There is beauty and moments of awe and splendor. No one can make the journey alone. And what we seek can ultimately be found within. The resources that are needed are already present within us and through the gift that each member of the community has to offer. Thinking about these birds on their journey in search of the Simorg also got me thinking about another collective of birds, a murmuration of starlings. I preached about murmurations a few years ago, and at the time noted how absolutely mesmerizing a murmuration can be. Here is a short video clip of one. Pretty fantastic to watch that flock of birds move together through the air. Starlings move together by paying attention to and following the lead of the 7 birds that are closest to them. This narrowed focus allows the greatest ease within the flock. By paying attention to just 7 other birds, a starling finds the right balance between their individual exertion of energy and the need to pay attention to the larger group. What strikes me about the starling murmuration is the presence of trust in how the birds move together. Each bird is relying on their closest neighbors to somehow guide them without being able to see or sense the entirety of the larger formation. I think this is an appropriate metaphor for how we might find ourselves functioning in this moment. The larger picture of change, whether in our personal lives or at the societal level, might seem obscure. But what is most possible and relevant is to focus in on what is happening right around us. I think one lesson murmurations can teach us is that it is in those relationships with people and the living beings that we are most proximate to that we can find connection and guidance. These relationships can hold us up if we trust in them, and something new can emerge. What emerges is something that one individual bird is probably completely unaware of, yet we can recognize the beauty of the whole that emerges as these birds move together. In this church community, we too look to one another for connection and guidance, moving together through winds of change. The past 2 years have had more than their fair share of change and challenge. As a community, we have grappled with how we can quite literally be together and how we carry on living out our mission of welcome, building loving community, nurturing spiritual growth, serving one another's needs and the needs of our neighbors, and protecting the natural world. All around us, the winds have been turbulent, from the upending of normal routines by the pandemic, to the shaking of our democratic foundations, to the surge of racial awakening and rising up for justice and equity, to the stormy gales of climate change growing ever more frequent, and the tempest of war, causing global alliances for freedom to pull together once again. As the winds blow, we look to one another in spiritual community for companionship, for support, and for reassurance that come what may, we stay together and we move together in community. During a time when we have not been able to be physically together in all the ways that we want and need, this community has been engaged in the quiet and steady ministry of presence and community building. You have been supporting one another in times of need and loss with meals, rides, cards, and phone calls. You have been growing in connection and relationship with one another in small groups of deep listening and support. You have been learning together about racial biases and shifting to transformative practices of liberation. You have been supporting one another in responding with courage and hope to the realities of the climate crisis. You have been guiding our children and youth in growing a spiritual foundation and staying connected to Unitarian Universalism. You have been welcoming and offering hospitality to newcomers and keeping open the edges of this community to those near and far who are in search of a place and people with whom to grow their spirits. In the coming year, we have much to look forward to: the completion of the air quality project and the full reopening of our building. Yes, there's some applause happening in the sanctuary for that. Coming back together for Sunday services and coffee hour, children's chapel on the green rug, groups meeting for spiritual exploration, programs for youth and adults, and beloved traditions like the holiday fair, indoors as well as outdoors. While we will surely reclaim some of the well-loved traditions of the past, we can also recognize that we are journeying together somewhere new. There is no going back to the way things used to be. It is not possible to return to quote unquote normal or the old ways exactly the same as they once were. At this point, we are called to move forward together, drawing on the gifts of each and every one of you to create something new. Like the birds in our story, we can recognize that we each have gifts to share with this community that can help make the journey easier. We each have gifts that can keep this community strong. Whatever your gift might be, this community needs you to bring it forward as we move into this new future. And none of us can know exactly what that future will be. What exactly will our ministry look like in the months and the years ahead? We are creating that together. This process of creation is where faith and hope come in. Faith in one another and in the notion that a gathered, covenanted community matters and has the potential to bring goodness into the world. hope, expressed through that faithful engagement with one another in building beloved community among ourselves and letting that practice of love lead us beyond the boundaries of this church community. Having hope in these times also means imagining a future that we want to live into together. For more than 155 years, this congregation has done just that, weathered storms and journeyed together when the air was light and breezy and when stronger gales emerged to imagine and create their future. This congregation has remained faithful and hopeful together. As we officially begin the annual pledge drive for the 2022-2023 church year, we look to the future while also celebrating and honoring all of the ways that each of you presently gives of your time and your talents and your own financial resources to fulfill our shared mission. We prepare for the coming year and make the financial commitments that will make it possible to continue our shared ministry here at the Unitarian Church of Montpelier. In this next year, we know that we will need to continue to innovate and to adapt our ministry, reintegrating traditional ways of being the church together with new ways of connecting and building community. We will also continue to prioritize fair compensation of salary and benefits for our paid staff. And we will make sure that we have the facilities, the equipment and infrastructure needed to have our building fully reopened alongside our virtual operations. The financial resources we gather as a community also support the full and the robust ministry of this congregation in its many forms, from sexuality education and mentorship for children and youth, to explorations of intersecting oppressions like racism, ableism, and classism for adults, to serving human need through direct financial assistance and meals, to educating ourselves on the best ways to protect the earth and using our collective power to call for action to address the climate crisis. This is all ministry that we do together, staff and volunteers, members and friends alike. The budgeting process we go through each year is also a part of our shared ministry. As a community, we discern together what our needs are and how the generosity of our financial gifts might meet those needs. At least 80% of our income comes from your pledged contributions. The pooling of our collective resources, each of us giving according to our capacity and our commitment, is an act of faith and trust and ultimately hope. Now, I recognize that financial loss and insecurity goes along with conditions of upheaval. Each of you can reflect on your own capacity to give and what this church community means to you to determine a pledge amount that is authentically generous for you at this time. The church receives a wide range of pledges and financial contributions, and all of them are received with gratitude. Each year, I, along with my spouse, participate in making a pledge to support the budget of this congregation. We believe in the power of this community. We receive from the ministry that provides a nurturing environment for our son and for each of us. And we are inspired by your compassion, your care, and your commitment to the values that give life to this congregation's ministry. This year, we are increasing our pledge to a total annual contribution of $4,800. This is where our capacity and our commitment meet to support the mission and the ministry of this congregation in the coming year. Your own discernment of where your capacity and your commitment meet will lead to your own number. And whatever that number is, thank you. Thank you for dedicating your time and energy to giving it careful thought. Thank you for thinking about the needs of this community and for making it possible for us to practice giving generously from your own sense of gratitude. Thank you for all of the ways that you give of yourself from a place of love and of hope as we create our future together. I'd like to now invite forward Brenda Bean, a member of the Stewardship Committee, to share a few words about the theme of this year's pledge drive.
Hi. A couple nights ago, I remembered this stanza that Emily Dickinson wrote. It fits the theme of the Stewardship Committee and the pledge drive this year. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. But before I remembered that, I wrote a reflection about the pledge drive, and I'm going to share it with you. It is spring. We are emerging with hope. We have to. We must, despite all the traumas. For the earth, for the world, our hearts are broken, cracked open. Love and light can enter. The Unitarian Church of Montpelier is a deep well of love and light. We must sustain it. It is our spiritual home. It nurtures us, and it's well past time for a more beloved community. We need it. So, what can we do? Joan just inspired me to share with you. I hope my husband won't mind. I forgot to ask him. Phil Morse and I will be increasing our pledges by 10% this year. So I hope the rest of us will respond with great gratitude and generosity to the pledge drive. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brenda. In the spirit of community collaboration, the Stewardship Committee has put together a collaborative art project inspired by our theme, Emerging with Hope, which you can see up on the chancel. And special thanks to Ansel Plug, who spearheaded this project. Each of the origami birds that's strung up here on the chancel represents a pledge that has been made during this drive. Thank you for pointing them out, Ansel. This morning, we have 13 birds hanging to represent the 13 pledges that have already been made by board members, stewardship committee members, and other church leaders and members towards next church year's budget. As more pledges come in, we will add more birds to the flock. The poplar tree is our tree of gratitude and hope. And we will be adding green leaves to the tree branches with your words of gratitude and hope. And I invite all of you, whether in the sanctuary, on Zoom or Facebook, to reflect for a few moments now on something about this church community that makes you feel grateful or gives you hope, or maybe it's both. What about this church community fills you with gratitude or gives you hope? If you are in the sanctuary, you can write your response on the green leaf that you received when you entered One of our stewardship committee members will collect those from you. If you're on Zoom or Facebook, you can share your response in the chat or comments. We will write your responses onto the green leaves we have in the sanctuary and add them to the tree. And as you begin to share, I will read aloud some of what you are adding to the Zoom chat. The care, dignity, and love offered. My spiritual nourishment. Peace in times of turmoil. Gratitude for the music, especially the organ. Welcoming. The connections between children and adults mean a lot to me and give me hope. Each person sharing their unique gifts. Continued reawakening. There's appreciation for the bird motif with connections to ancestors who were avid bird watchers. Friendships, community, wonderful Sunday services. Hope from our anti-racism work. It is good to be part of a community that is open to growing and changing. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your words of gratitude and hope. Keep on adding them to the Zoom chat and on Facebook. Those in the sanctuary, feel free to write your words, and I think there's some collection happening. As the service continues, we'll be adding them to our tree branches. And now I invite you to please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing hymn at home or here in the sanctuary, number 1020 in the teal hymnal, Wo Ya Ya.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know within, we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. It will be hard, we know. And the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Paula. As we draw our service to a close, we extinguish the chalice and carry within each of us its healing flame, the warmth of community, and the spark of hope into the days and the week ahead. I invite you to join me now in saying our congregational mission statement. We welcome all as we build a loving community to nurture each person's spiritual journey, serve human need, and protect the earth, our home. As we bring our service to a close, let us give thanks that we are in community together. I invite you, if you are on Zoom, to once again turn your video on and go to gallery view. I will do that for the folks in the sanctuary to be able to see you on the Zoom. Let your heart be filled with gratitude and with hope, for we know that we will get there, not alone, but together, sharing of our gifts, giving and receiving with love. And now we conclude our service with the postlude.
This life, one thing counts. In the bank, large amounts. I'm afraid these don't grow on trees. You've got to pick a pocket or two. You've got to pick a pocket or two. Boys and girls and everybody else. You've got to pick a pocket or two. Large amounts don't grow on trees. You've got to pick a pocket or two. In this life, one thing counts. In the bank, large amounts. I'm afraid these don't grow on trees. You've got to pick a pocket or two. You've got to pick a pocket or two. Boys, you've got to pick a pocket or two. Large amounts don't grow on trees. You've got to pick a pocket or two.